Hello everyone, welcome to my little video today. Um, we'll meet Thomas. He's the Marquis of the house. He's very important. I will show you off my another Nightingale's t-shirt. Too bad you cannot see it really well, but it has that kind of a foresty, medieval vibe to it. Here we go, with a tower in the background and a castle. I love this t-shirt. So anyhow, today we're gonna talk about two things. We're gonna talk about Shashka slings, and we're gonna talk about one of my favorites in the collection, the Hanwei civilian model. And I will tell you why exactly it's one of my favorites, what goes very well with it, and I might even compare it with the Universal Swords Paklanos Shashka, depending if Cat would allow me to do any of this. First, I want to talk about Shashka slings. So I have acquired through eBay this original, supposedly Soviet Union, or actually pre-World War One. It's kind of hard to date, but it's an older Shashka, end of 19th century, perhaps beginning of 20th century Shashka sling. I meant. I used some W240 against rust, not exactly very successful. Tons and tons of oil to make it soft, and while it fits the Perserey's very slender Shashka scabbard, it doesn't quite fit very well um, some of the modern Shashkas out there. So I will keep it for the Perserey, and it will match very well with that historical vibe. But for other Shashkas, I came up with a sling that is made from a rifle sling. And I will show you exactly how it looks like here in just a second. I will unbound it from my Hanwei civilian and show it to you in detail. So I bought a rifle sling made in the United States by the veterans, and I also bought, I will show you here in more detail, these strips of synthetic material with steel O-rings. I bought 3 of them. Um, so as you can see, I attached one strip to the sling on one side, and on the right side you see another O-ring attached to the sling. Then the 2 other strips are there to mount the Shashka on. And these are meant for like hanging gym equipment, so they're very high tensile strength. They're definitely much stronger than old restored leather slings, though it is a modern design. Call it like a post-apocalyptic Shashka sling. That's my long name for it. And I used carabiners to attach it to the scabbard. These are decent quality stainless steel carabiners, which could be repurposed if needed in a survival situation. But this basically creates a nice sling with a shoulder pad, and I will kind of attach a Shashka to it for you, so you could see visually how it all works out. And I will be attaching the Hanwei civilian Shashka, which is one of my favorites, to the sling. And of course, you can regulate how wide you want to have it. It's set up to be a bit wider to go over a jacket. Um, when you hang it on your shoulder, it actually balances pretty well. It's hard to tell by this video, but trust me on this one. And the civilian Shashka by Hanwei, this design, is very tricky and interesting. And I will tell you why. Oh, something fell. My weight, apologies. So, it's marketed as an earlier type of Shashka, and it does kind of live up to that. It has that simple wooden, they call it balchok or hilt, but the interesting part is that the tang goes all the way through it. If you look at the older Circassian, Georgian designs, the tang does not go all the way through the hilt, and there's a little bit of a gap between the wooden cheeks. So that's kind of interesting. And that basically what it does, it pushes the balance slightly towards to the hand, making it the more controllable sword. And it is definitely much lighter than the Hanwei's replica of M1881 Shashka. And if you don't know, M1881 was the first Shashka adopted by the Tsarist Russia as the military pattern to be used by basically everybody. Only the dragoons and heavy cavalry. Heavy cavalry had their own sabers, and dragoons had an integrated additional hand protection. But everybody else used that M1881. It is more expensive than the civilian Shashka. The scabbard of the civilian Shashka is like 10 times better. It's fairly thick wooden core bound with synthetic leather and mild steel that's actually very well fitted. So this is a very good scabbard for any cavalry Shashka or Saber in general, which is one of the things why I like the civilian model. And it's cheaper than M1881. Also, I do have M1881 more as a cultural artifact because on my father's side, my family comes from Orenburg, which was a very interesting place, and I'm not going to talk much about it, but it was a purpose-built Cossack settlement to protect the southern part of the Russian Empire. So let's leave it at that. And my ancestors likely were fielding something like M1881, more so than something like this. How is it different from M1881? Well, it doesn't have any brass pieces and no wooden lacquered uh, cheeks in between. It just has a one wooden cheek on each side. I think it's lined with some kind of a synthetic wooden, maybe, I don't know, laminate. I cannot really tell, but there's definitely something between the tank and the wooden part. It feels very solid, and the wood has decent texture. I actually applied as an experiment, high risk, high reward experiment of putting the wood glue layer over it, letting it solidify, and then sand it gently. So it kind of filled in. There were no cracks, but it made the feel of this part, of the wooden part, even more gripping. That's so something you may want to consider. You definitely want to oil the this leather. Not sure about the official name. Sorry, guys. Meant to go over your wrist, so when you're on the horse and fighting with the sword, it doesn't just fall off your hands. It's a sling of swords, but it was very very dry, so it required quite a bit of. I used just gun oil, to be honest, to make it nice and soft. Now let's look at the blade. That's where kind of the fun part begins. Give me a second to unleash it. Being very accurate. Um, you do see some wax over here. It's micro wax. It was basically meant to keep the moisture outside of the scabbard. Normally you would not see it, of course, on the Shashka. It is made with the first inch so non-sharpened for the finger over the hilt or finger over the grip particular use case. It has a lighter spine than M1881. It's still squarish. It is square. It would be fine for blocking. It's probably as thick as Perserey's Shashka, just a generic one that they have in terms of thickness. But it is a little bit heavier. So in terms of weight, it's somewhere between the classic Circassian Perserey made Shashka and M1881. It also retains that feature of a false edge, and it is sharpened on the side for a few inches, so it's pretty good at thrusting. But the weight distribution, Shashki, they just kind of want you to go forward and go along with them. It feels like they have a life of their own, which is why I love them so much. Um, this one has a more um, the weight distribution to make it feel easier in your hand, but the tip doesn't quite carry the cut forward. But it is light, and it's great for draw cuts. And it is made from 5160 uh, through spring tempered steel by Hanwei. There's absolutely no scratches on the blade. It's sharp. I owned it with the ceramic stick quite a bit. It's a good shashka in a way that it is a good middle ground between a heavy Tsarist design, which of course were made for the cavalry and heavy duty field warfare, and it is a bit heavier and probably stronger than the classic Circassian design, which was just all about slashing as fast as you possibly could, draw cutting, and overwhelming your opponent. Um, this one is capable of a draw cut, and it is quite effective if you just train with it a little. It cuts full noodles like you can't even feel them. Cuts pine tree, fresh branches. You don't really feel that either. So it's a good shashka, and it's $100 cheaper than M1881. So unless you want M1881 as a historical artifact, of course go for it. But it comes with a plastic scabbard that is very poorly made and not strong enough, very much decorative in nature. The sword itself is good, but it's not quite practical. As you can tell, this design with the very nice reinforced scabbard made with mild steel um, is much more post-apocalypse friendly or survival situation friendly. And it's one of the reasons I like it quite a bit. The handle goes in quite much, almost all the way through. I like to keep it out just a little to have a good grip for a possible draw cut, and of course the micro wax here protects it from any moisture coming in. The Circassian Shashki and Georgian Caucasus design in general, they have the hilt going all the way into the scabbard, which prevents any moisture coming in. And the way that the Russian engineers have solved it, let me try not to make more mess here. I will show you the Baklan of Shashka, which is very similar to M1881 design. It's made by Universal Swords. I know that they have switched to 1060 steel in recent year or so. It does have a springy feel to it. I owned it with the ceramic rod quite a bit, and it still feels nice and strong. It doesn't. You don't remove layers of it easily, like sometimes with cheap stainless steel and a ceramic rod. So they actually have decent steel for this shashka. And the way that it locks into the scabbard, there is this not wooden, but the leather part that prevents the moisture from coming in. That's kind of how Imperial Russia has uh, changed the design, its Circassian design, um, for various reasons. Easier to produce in mass quantities. It is heavier because it was meant to withstand many battles. Um, I might as well show you the blade of the Baklan of Shashka. It's similar to the M1881 in its shape. It has that slight curve. It has a nice big fuller towards the middle. The fuller is going away towards the tip of this blade, and it does have sharpening on each side, and a Cult of Athena have sharpened it for me. So it's a very good thrusting weapon. But because the lightening of the blade, because of the fuller, stops towards the tip is quite heavy. So that the sword, if you practice flankirovka with it, It may be a bit hard on your wrists, but it definitely feels like it has life of its own. Um, it's pinned uh, design. You could see like a little steel circle in the handle. It looks just as neat as the design of M1881. Of course, the Hanwei's uh, design is much more precisely manufactured, um, but this universal sword Shashka has that vibe of something that could have been made in Zlatoust. So it has just a little bit of tool markings, just some imperfections to make the sword feel a bit more handmade. And this is my main practice sword for flankirovka. It gives me challenge. Um, I don't mind if it breaks or anything happens to it because it's affordable. And so far, it held up very well. Like cheap sword, you will feel it in the handle first. It'll start getting loose, and you can see they kind of used unusual feature more found in Western sabers, um, this braiding of brass wires. And I was afraid that they would start coming off or feel loose, but so far everything's great, and I've had it for a few months already. As you see, the scabbard is not quite even in the surface, but it doesn't matter. It does the job. It has some very nice detailing on it if you're into that kind of thing. Zlatoust style pattern on the brass. It's a good practice Shashka. So in this video, I discussed creation of a sling for a Shashka. Um, for $20-$30, you could get all you need to create a very strong sling with the steel carabiners based on a rifle sling of your choice, which will hold much better than if you try to adapt an older leather sling. Perhaps the officer design was better, but this particular sling has only one iron part, it's the buckle. Um, there is also iron triangles um, in this portion here, uh, and the way that you mount the blade, you kind of unbutton this part, and it's probably made from tin. It didn't rust and it doesn't react to magnet, so you will unbutton it, put the scabbard inside, and button it back on. But it is sensitive to the thickness of the scabbard, so it might not fit all Shashki, but it will fit like Perserey's original design that doesn't have any like brass or steel reinforcements for the scabbard. Um, if I had to rate my Shashki from the most favorite one to the least favorite one, it's really hard because they all have their own personality and they excel at different things. M1881 is a beautifully made sword, but the scabbard is crap. So it's a display piece. You could wear it with a costume, but for survival type situation, it's not going to work very well. It dents easily. You could apply some nail polish to cover up the dent, but it tells you that the plastic is not some very strong polycarbonate or anything like that. It's cheap, which is unfortunate because it is one of the more expensive Shashkas made by Hanwei. The civilian is great. It's probably one of my favorites. And today we just came up with a name for her, Axinia, because good swords need to have a name. That's the kind of Shashka I would wear with me in a kind of crap hits defense scenario because of a very strong scabbard and the balance between strength and weight and speed, ability to draw cut. The only minus is that the hilt doesn't go all the way in, so it does create a bit of an area where the moisture can come through. And of course, you don't want to use Shashka for clearing brush. It's only to be used in extreme situations. So you could apply some bare fat, wax, or what have you to seal that area, or wrap it into something that doesn't let the moisture through. So there is a bit of a trade-off in that regard. I love Perserey's Shashka for how, well, it's magnificent in its simplicity. It's so light, and like practicing flankirovka with it is almost feeling like cheating. Right hand, left hand, all the standard movements you make, it's so easy. It doesn't feel like you're even holding a sword. It doesn't feel like even you're holding a stick. It really does live up to that expectation of the Shashka from Caucasus region, the early models, and they're lovely. If you're looking for a very fancy Shashka made in a traditional way, I would recommend you Tolordava store on Etsy. Their Shashkas are $1,000 plus, sometimes a bit less, but they're made with silver, um, all handmade. I believe they use wood, steel. Um, they're constructed similar in terms of the tang as the Circassian Shashka by Perserey. So they kind of stick to the same tradition, except having slightly heavier blades, I suppose a bit more cavalry minded versus personal use minded. So check out the Lordava store. They're not endorsing me by any means. I bought Gaziri from them before, and it was great experience. We had some great conversations, and now I have very nice silver tipped Gaziri for my costume. So if you have any questions about the sling, about any of the shashkas I have mentioned, or anything at all, please just leave me something in the comments. Of course, I will read them and I will reply. I hope this was helpful to you, and till the next time, thank you so much for your attention and just watching my video. I appreciate it. Thank you.